Sepang testing day one is over, and Aprilia and Jorge Martin already have a season-defining crash on their hands. As that's the biggest story that's come out of day one so far, as Jorge Martin completed only 14 laps before having a crash that has seen him put out of the rest of the Sepang test, and currently Aprilia are not sure how long it will be. As if you haven't seen the crash already, it was a horrendous crash. As the first crash he had was into turn 1, which is a high side, but much slower speed and landed much better than he did. Whereas the second one was off throttle, going into turn 2, the rear slips out and it sends him sky high and he comes down on the crash helmet and his visor and that falls out. But if you haven't seen the video already, take a look. It's horrendous. But moving on to other bigger issues as well for Aprilia is the fact that Raul Fernandez also suffered a fracture in his left hand and broken toe on his right foot, which is also another big issue for Aprilia, as that now leaves them with only Bezzecchi and Ayagura to do this year's setup of the new Aprilia and really do the testing on it. And as we know, Bezzecchi was on the Ducati last year, and Ayagura being a rookie, it's hard to expect either of these to have a really good handle on what they want from the bike. And it could be crucial for the development of the Aprilia this year that Martin and Raul Fernandez, the only Aprilia consistent rider, are not in for the rest of the Sepang test, and maybe not the Thailand test. We're not yet sure of this. But Di Antonio was also the third rider to suffer a major crash, with his initially the VR46 team saying he was okay. Slightly later, it appeared that the VR46 team were wrong, and actually his left collarbone has fractured, and now Di Antonio is also on a plane back to Italy and seen out for the rest of the Sepang test, and they're also not sure if he'll be back from Thailand. This is significant for Digia, as he was also missing the last 2 rounds of 2024, as he had to go undergo that shoulder surgery at the end of the 24 season. So it's really not a good start for the 2 Aprilia riders and Digia. However, as a more positive note, Fabio Quartararo on the Yamaha topped the timesheets, which we could put down at the end of the day to it being testing. However, the bike looked good. And not even Marquez on the new 2025 Ducati could beat him. But at the same time, this is very good for Marc, as on his second day he was only 500ths off, whereas Bagnaia was down the order. Further down the order, you had the 2 Gresini riders on the 24 Ducati, with Alex Marquez and Fermin Aldeguer. Fermin Aldeguer was less than half a second off of Fabio Quartararo and was the highest of the rookies so far, and puts him in good stead for the rest of the season. Following that, it was the other Ducati, meaning the top 5 had 4 Ducatis in, with only Quartararo upsetting this order. Following this, we had Johan Mir, who was on the new Honda and actually gives a glimmer of hope to the factory this year. They look rather good. However, with the track not being in optimum condition and the wind being rather high today, it's hard to say whether or not that was just down to a one-off lap or if the bike can be consistent and looks as good as what it has done today. But we'll have to wait for day 2 and 3 to get a real understanding. Moving further down the order, 7th place with Di Antonio before his crash. Jack Miller on the Prima Pramac Yamaha looked good. Looked very good so far, and is really quite promising to see him doing so well. Johan Zarco was then 9th, and Miguel Oliveira rounded out the top 10. The most important thing to notice here was that Pedro Acosta and Brad Binder on the KTMs were out of the top 10, which is not so bad because it's only testing, but at the same time, KTM, after having such a horrid time with their financial situation over the winter, it would have been nice to see one of the bikes higher up, as Pedro Acosta was 0.8 of a second off of the time set by Fabio Quartararo. But there's plenty of time, and it's the first day of testing, so hopefully the KTMs can move forward slightly. This though, the only other really standout statistic of the day was the fact that Bagnaia was down in 17th place, but once again, as it's only testing, how much can you read into this? As even on a race weekend, on a Friday, he's not always at the front. But still, 1.4 seconds off of the time set by Quartararo, so it's something to keep an eye on. And Ducati, Marquez, in the recent interview conducted by the Motogp, very, very, very much emphasising the fact how important the engine is. So it's clear to see that the teams are focusing on the development of that before it's homologated for 27. So now I'll quickly run through the order from Pedro Acosta. So 11th was Pedro Acosta, Binder in 12th, Vinales 13th, Rins 14th, Marini 15th, Ayagura on the Aprilia Trackhouse in 16th, then Bagnaia, Bezzecchi, Bastianini, Fernandez. Somkiat Chantra had a good day, 2.7 seconds off, but once again, it's his first day, and we're not expecting loads from the Honda LCR team. As much as Chantra's a good rider, it's not an ideal position for the rookie to be. And then sadly, at the bottom of the table was Raul Fernandez and Jorge Martin, both with times outside the 2 minutes, and big worries for the rest of the season. Circling back to Yamaha, it was clear to see that Yamaha are really going for it this season, with 3 different bikes on show for Quartararo and Rins, and with more bikes on show for tomorrow with Prima Pram at Yamaha, allowing Miller and Oliveira also to have some good insight. Promising to see how Yamaha are really throwing everything they have at this, and not wasting the Prima Pramac lineup like they did with Tech 3 back in the day, and really adopting that Ducati style. Focusing on Honda again, Mir, as I said, was in 6th place, which was very good, and he was only 9 thousandths off the time set by Aleix Espargaro during the shakedown. And Johan Zarco makes it 2 Hondas in the top 10 with P9. One novelty for the factory was the new seat unit. Luca Marini was P15, and rookie Somkiat Chantra was quite off the back, but the tyre rider felt some good improvements on day one, so it's promising. At KTM, as discussed, that's probably the most concerning bike so far, with none of them being in the top 10, with Pedro Acosta 11th and suffering quite a big crash at turn 13, but the rider was okay. But after a dramatic day one on track, the biggest takeaway has to be that massive crash for Jorge Martin that really could be season defining, but we're hoping he has a speedy recovery and can be back for the Thailand test, and if not, certainly by the first race in Buriram. For today, I'll be back again tomorrow discussing day 2 and hopefully some quicker times and hopefully more representative of what we might see. Please like and subscribe, as I really appreciate it, and trying to start something here with this channel, and it'd be much appreciated. But until then, see you tomorrow.